ready to really take off in your career. Today, we're doing a deep dive into how to totally nail that Aircraft Assembly Supervisor interview. And luckily, we've got RoleCatcher's incredible resources with us. We've got the career guide and the really awesome part, the real interview questions, so we can get you prepped.
You know, what I think is so cool about this role is you're not just like building planes, you're really building a whole team. It takes so much like technical knowledge. But then you need those leadership skills. And of course, you absolutely have to have a constant eye on safety. Precision, I mean, every single rivet actually matters.
Okay, so first things first, RoleCatcher's guide says the job outlook is really positive. Which makes sense, right? I mean, people are always going to want to fly.
Yeah.
And especially with all the new tech coming out, like AI, it feels like this field is just going to keep getting bigger.
Definitely. I think what's going to be interesting is the interviewers are really going to be looking for someone who's not just like skilled today, but someone who can adapt, someone who can kind of roll with the punches, you know, handle all the things that the future of aircraft manufacturing, whatever it is going to throw at them.
Speaking of the future, this is where RoleCatcher's AI features can really give you like a secret advantage.
Oh, yeah.
Because their system will actually analyze your practice answers and it will give you feedback, but it's tailored to this specific job. You're not getting just generic advice, which is pretty cool.
It's like having your own personal coach.
Yeah.
Right there in your pocket. But, you know, let's put that AI to work on some real questions. All right. So, question number 1, what experience do you have in leading a team in aircraft assembly? That's a big one right out of the gate.
And RoleCatcher's insights are saying that they're not just looking for a boring list of like every job you've ever had.
Right.
It's more about, can you actually manage a team and can you deliver projects on time and within budget?
Yeah. So I would say instead of just like listing off, you know, I was in charge of X number of people or whatever, try telling a story.
Okay.
Talk about a specific project. What were the challenges that you faced? And how did your leadership style get your team through it? Successfully, obviously.
Yeah. Because I bet they really want to hear about a time you had to like deal with a difficult team member.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Like that's almost guaranteed to be a follow-up question.
Oh, yeah.
So tell me about a time you had to.
And that's good. That's a good thing because it's a chance for you to show, hey, I can handle conflict professionally. Pick an example where you know, resolved things in a positive way and highlight your communication skills.
Yeah.
You know, and just that you're able to keep the whole team focused on what matters.
All right, question 2. What safety protocols do you implement during aircraft assembly? Now we're getting serious.
Oh, absolutely. Safety, I mean, that's everything. The interviewer wants to see that you have like a deep understanding of FAA regulations, that, you know, like one misstep, you know, could have really serious consequences. But it's not just about knowing the rules. It's about, you know, actually living them.
And RoleCatcher's AI can actually help you with this too.
Yeah.
Like you can record yourself answering this question and the AI will analyze like your tone of voice, even your language, to kind of see if you're coming across as genuinely like safety conscious.
That is a good point because it's one thing to say, you know, safety is important, but you really have to mean it. Your delivery has to show it.
So yeah, like don't just rattle off some generic protocols. You know,
Right.
give specific examples from your experience, maybe even tie it to a specific regulation, like that you know really well.
And be ready for that follow-up. Like,
Yeah.
you know, okay, but how would you handle a situation where a team member just wasn't following those safety procedures?
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Because they want to see, can you enforce those rules, but still maintain, you know, a positive team environment?
Okay, I think this is a good place to take a little detour from the questions.
Yeah.
Just for a second, and look at some of the career insights, because RoleCatcher's guide has a really interesting pros and cons section. And, you know, obviously there's a lot that's really appealing about this role.
Right.
Like the leadership opportunities, stability.
Definitely. But it also mentions, like, you know, there's a high level of responsibility. And there's potential for a lot of pressure, too, because you're dealing with these, like, complex machines. And people's lives are on the line, so it's not for everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely something to think about. Okay, so back to the questions. Number 3, how do you ensure that aircraft assembly projects are completed on time and within budget?
This is all about project management. The interviewer wants to see if you can, like, plan ahead, manage resources, and also anticipate problems before they become these huge delays.
It's probably smart to mention any project management tools or methodologies you're familiar with, you know, like lean manufacturing, which is all about eliminating waste and making the production process, you know, as smooth as possible.
Or even Six Sigma, which focuses on really reducing those defects. And this is another spot where RoleCatcher's AI can be really, really helpful because it can actually analyze the specific job description and tell you which skills to, like, emphasize in your answer.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you might be incredible at both Lean and Six Sigma, right? But if this specific job is leaning more toward one of them, you want to tailor your answer to that.
For sure. And be ready for those follow-up questions like, okay, well, tell me about a time when you had to adjust a project schedule because something crazy happened, like something unforeseen. They want to see how you can handle those inevitable curveballs.
Okay. Question 4 is another big one. It says, how do you ensure that quality standards are met during aircraft assembly?
Yeah. I mean, quality control is non-negotiable in this field. You have to be so meticulous, detail-oriented, and able to communicate those standards to your entire team.
And the guide is saying they're looking for specific quality standards that you would implement, not just like some vague ideas.
So really talk about the inspection processes you've used, any documentation you've maintained, and like, how did you deal with any deviations from those required standards? Real-world examples are key.
I bet a potential follow-up here could be, have you ever had to stop production because of a quality issue? I feel like that's a really tough situation to handle.
It is.
But it shows that you're really committed to safety.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a chance to talk about your problem-solving skills. How did you identify the root cause? What actions did you take to, correct it? And what lessons did you learn?
Okay, before we jump into the next question, let's take a quick peek at some of those like career advancement options, because the guide talks about all these different paths you could take, like becoming a production manager or even specializing in areas like automation.
Which is so cool. There's so much variety within this field, and you can totally use that to your advantage in the interview. Like, you could mention an area that you're super interested in, like working on the next generation of electric aircraft or something.
Totally, because that shows that you're not just looking for like a job, you're thinking about like your future in this industry.
Okay, back to the hot seat. Question 5. How do you handle conflicts within your team during aircraft assembly projects?
Ah, yes, a classic behavioral interview question. Conflict, you know it's going to happen on any team, but it's how you handle it that sets you apart as a leader.
The guide really stresses the importance of discussing specific conflict resolution techniques, not just saying like, oh yeah, I'm great at resolving conflict.
Right, like give them a concrete example. Did you have to like mediate a disagreement between team members, or did you have to help people communicate more effectively? The more specific, the better. And I bet they'll probably ask, what's your approach to giving constructive feedback, especially when dealing with a sensitive issue? They're looking for like those emotional intelligence and coaching skills.
Yeah, it's all about that balance, being firm but also being supportive, All right, let's jump back into those interview questions. Are you ready for some more?
I'm ready.
Okay, good. Question number 6 is, how do you ensure that your team is properly trained and equipped for aircraft assembly projects?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It is. And this is like a two-parter. It's about initial training, of course.
Yeah.
But it's also about, that ongoing development, making sure your team always has like the right tools and the most up-to-date knowledge to just excel. And stay sharp, obviously.
And RoleCatcher's Insights mentioned that, like, the interviewer is going to be looking for very specific examples. So, like, what training programs have you actually put into place? Or how have you been able to get, like, new equipment to improve efficiency and safety?
Yeah, exactly. They're probably going to want to know, like, how do you even assess those needs in the first place? Do you use performance reviews? Do you actually, like, get feedback from the team themselves? So be ready to actually describe your process.
This reminds me of something cool in the RoleCatcher guide in the section on, like, specialisms. It turns out there are a ton of different paths you could take as an aircraft assembly supervisor.
I know, it's not just a one-size-fits-all role, is it?
Nope.
You could specialize in automation and quality control. You can even focus on a specific type of aircraft.
And wouldn't that be a really smart thing to mention during the interview? Like, if you've done your research and you know the company really focuses on, say, composite materials or something like that, you could weave that right into your answer.
For sure. It shows that you're already thinking long-term and that you could be a really good fit for their needs, specifically. Okay, on to question 7. How do you stay up to date with the latest aircraft assembly techniques and technologies?
Yes. Got to stay current. With this one, I think it's really about showing that you are passionate about this and that you're not going to fall behind as the industry keeps changing and evolving.
Totally. The interviewer wants to know that you're actually, like, actively learning. So mention those industry publications you read, you know? Conferences that you attend, or maybe some online courses you've taken.
Oh, and this is another way that RoleCatcher's AI can really come in handy.
Yeah.
Because it can actually analyze all those job postings
Cool.
and tell you, which skills are really in demand right now. That way you're putting all your energy and focusing your learning in the right areas.
It's like you're not just learning for the sake of learning. You're gaining those skills that are really valuable to employers.
Exactly. All right, and definitely be prepared for the follow-up question, which is probably going to be something like, can you give me an example of a new technique or a technology that you've actually implemented recently?
Ooh, yeah.
Show, don't tell.
They want to see that real-world application. Right, and don't forget to talk about, like, the results, too. Did it actually improve efficiency? Did it reduce defects? Did it make the workplace safer? Like, those are the things that are really going to impress them.
Okay. Question number 8. How do you ensure that communication is effective within your team during aircraft assembly projects? Now, this feels like it's probably more important in this industry than in a lot of other jobs.
Right. Oh, yeah. I mean, think about it. You're talking about complex machinery. There are tight deadlines, and people's safety is on the line. Like, a simple miscommunication could have huge consequences.
RoleCatcher's insights really emphasize clear communication to prevent anything like that from happening. And the guide suggests giving very specific examples of communication techniques that you've actually used yourself.
Yeah. Like, walk them through your process. Do you have, like, daily team huddles? Do you use visuals? How do you make sure that everybody is, like, literally and figuratively on the same page?
And I bet a common follow-up question here is, okay, so tell me about a time when a communication breakdown actually did lead to a problem.
Yeah.
Because no one's perfect. They want to see how you, learn from your mistakes.
And that's a tough one, but I think it's a good opportunity to show that you can be accountable, be honest about what happened, but really focus on, what steps did you take to fix it, and how did you prevent it from happening again?
Okay, speaking of learning from experience, the RoleCatcher Guide has this whole section on showcasing your capabilities. And it talks about, building a portfolio.
Sure.
So you have all these, successful projects that you can point to.
And networking,
Yeah.
attending industry events, connecting with people online.
Yeah.
It's really all about, putting yourself out there.
That's great advice for anyone, not just folks in the aircraft industry, right?
Totally.
Okay, so are you ready for the final interview question?
Let's do it. Bring it on. I'm ready.
All right, it's a classic. Describe your leadership style.
Ooh, the question that everyone wants to answer with, like a buzzword, I'm a transformational leader. But don't do that. Don't fall into the trap.
Exactly, because the guide says it's all about being authentic.
Yes.
So skip the buzzwords and tell a story that really shows your leadership style in action.
Yeah, give them really concrete examples. Do you lead by example? Are you someone who delegates effectively? Are you a strong communicator? Show them. Don't just tell them.
Oh, and guess what? RoleCatcher's AI can help you refine this answer too.
No way.
It can analyze your answer for keywords, tone, all that stuff, just to make sure that you are coming across as confident and capable.
That's amazing. It's like having a little digital speech coach, just like giving you real-time feedback.
Okay, last potential follow-up for this one is, can you provide an example of a time when your leadership style helped your team overcome a challenge?
I love it. This is your chance to really shine. Choose a story that highlights your strengths and that shows how your leadership had a really tangible, positive impact.
Okay, we have covered so much today, but don't worry, we're not done yet. We'll be back in just a bit to wrap things up. We'll give you some final things to think about. Okay, so we're back, and you've made it through the entire interview prep. You've got those tough questions down, and you are ready to impress.
But what happens after you nail the interview?
Oh, good point.
Yeah.
So let's say you get the job offer. What are some things you should really be thinking about before you say yes?
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, first, you want to make sure that the company's culture really aligns with your values,
Yeah.
Do they actually prioritize things like safety and quality as much as you do? Because if they don't, it's not going to be a good fit.
And even if you already have, a ton of experience, don't think you can just, skip the training.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher's Guide really talks about how important those hands-on experiences, all those initial training programs are.
It's like learning to fly a whole new type of aircraft.
Right.
You really need to understand those controls and the procedures before you're, out there on your own.
Exactly. Speaking of taking off, let's talk about, your career growth. The guide lays out a bunch of different paths for aircraft assembly supervisors. Like you could move up into management, you could specialize in something like automation.
Or you could even go for more education, get some more certifications. You know, this role, it can be a real launching pad for your whole career.
It really can. And this is where RoleCatcher's AI comes in handy again. Remember how we were talking about how it can analyze all those job postings and pick out like the skills that are most in demand?
Yeah.
Well, you can actually use that information to like plan your career path.
Yeah.
And make sure you're always developing the skills that are going to make you the perfect candidate for those future roles.
It's like having a personalized career roadmap, just guiding you toward those goals.
Okay, so before we officially wrap this whole thing up, let's go back to that like thought-provoking question from RoleCatcher's Guide, the one about your career ambitions. So think about it. Which path actually excites you the most? And how can you kind of work that into your answers in the interview?
Yeah, the interviewer wants to know that you're not just looking for like any old job, you're actually thinking about a career. So if you can show them that you've already put some thought into what your future at their company might look like, that makes you stand out.
So even if they don't directly ask you about your long-term goals, find a way to like subtly mention those aspirations. You know what I mean? So like maybe when you're discussing a specific skill, you can say something like, I'm really interested in this because I think it's going to be so crucial to like the future of aircraft manufacturing. And it also aligns with my goals to maybe eventually specialize in.
I love that. It's such a good way to show that you're invested in, you know, your own growth and in the future of the whole industry.
Exactly. So as you're getting ready for that interview, make sure you're showing off your skills, your passion, and your vision. Don't forget about all those amazing resources that RoleCatcher offers. Practice your answers and just really try to visualize yourself succeeding in this field.
And most importantly, believe in yourself. You've got this.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself. So that's it for our deep dive on the Aircraft Assembly Supervisor interview. We hope you got a lot out of it, and we wish you all the best in your career journey.